And joining us with her thoughts from Fort Lauderdale, Shari Olefson, CEO of the Carnegie Group, author of The Financial Fresh Start. Shari, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. What's going to be the most...
Good morning, Ross.
The most notable impact as we move now from what's been a fairly good 2013 into 2014? We've got new mortgage laws coming in. How are they going to play?
Absolutely. Well, Ross, up until now, it's been about bouncing off the bottom. We are now beginning to brush against the top, primarily because of wages and income have just not kept up with the home price increases. For example, over the last 2 years, we know prices are up by about 20%, wages only by about 3%, and particularly that first-time buyer, ages 25 to 35, their job situation has only recovered by about a quarter. But what's really going to happen going into 2014 is due to the new Dodd-Frank Act rules that have to do with mortgage origination. Now, those start January 10th, and here's the thing. To be considered a qualified mortgage under those new rules, which gives banks a safe harbor against lawsuits, so they're going to want to issue qualified mortgages, a borrower's debt-to-income ratio can't be more than 43%. So their debt can't be more than 43% of their income. That's going to be a problem as home prices increase, i.e. the borrower's debt, but wages do not increase, i.e. the borrower's income. So we're going to be brushing up against that even more because of the Dodd-Frank rules.
Yeah, so how is that going to constrain sales and therefore prices?
Sure. The less folks that are going to be able to qualify for mortgages, affordable mortgages, means less folks that are going to be able to go out in the market and buy homes. So we would expect the number of sales to probably remain consistent instead of growing hugely. They're going to look more like they did during the second half of 2013 rather than the first half where we saw sales still really going up. And the prices, of course, prices were up by 10 or 12% across the board this past year. We're expecting about half of that increase in the coming year, due in large part to the increasing cost of being able to get a mortgage. Folks who can't get what's called a qualified mortgage are going to end up paying more for their mortgage, which means that's less money they can pay for the house.
We've also got the expiry of the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Relief Act. What impact is that going to have?
That's big. Well, that expires at the end of this month unless it's renewed. It will not be renewed before the end of the month, but it may be renewed next year retroactively. And basically what the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Relief Act did, it enabled folks who were underwater to sell their home. Because normally when you sell a home and the bank forgives debt, you have to pay income tax on that forgiven debt, which of course would prevent millions of people from doing short sales in the U.S., where you sell your home for less than what you owe the bank. There's still about 9 million people underwater in the U.S., so with that act expiring, folks are just not going to be able to do short sales if they have to pay income tax on that money that's forgiven. That could have a huge impact on sales in general.
What has been supportive for the year? Inventory fairly low because a lot of sellers are still underwater, and we haven't had a huge amount of construction. Will either of those two things change in 2014?
Sure. New construction is improving slowly but surely. But remember, we had years of activity, maybe a third of the normal activity. We'll finish 2013, Ross, with but probably under 1 million in new construction. 2014, we're looking at probably over 1 million, but we're still a good way away from that 1.5 million, which would be considered normal for a normal market. But again, we're going to keep bumping up against the issue with average Americans not being able to afford the increasing price, particularly in new construction, which tend to sell for a little bit more. This market so far has been driven by cash buyers and investors, not by average folks and not by first-time buyers, which is critical to U.S. housing.
Shari, always good to see you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Shari Olefson from the Carnegie Group in Fort Lauderdale.
Take care.
Thank you.